Alrighty, let's talk about Wayland, shall we? If you've looked up anything to do with Wayland versus X, you've probably seen the image that I'm showing on the screen right here, which is mostly correct. We're going to fix it in a minute. So, Wayland in its current form is ready for public consumption. It works awesome, even on an NVIDIA machine that I have right behind me. That is running NVIDIA. It is on a Wayland session. It works fabulous. 6 months ago, I couldn't say that. I'm running AMD graphics on this machine, and it's been awesome for close to a year now. On the NVIDIA machine, 6 months ago, I could not tell you that it runs awesome, because it didn't. And I'm also running OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, bleeding edge, almost bleeding edge, rolling release, and that's a lot of why it's working great now, because the current implementation of Wayland runs great. There's going to be some use case scenarios to where you have to have some particular thing in X that doesn't have Wayland support. And if that's the case, it may never have that Wayland support that you're particularly looking for. It is what it is. But Wayland in its current form is awesome. I'm constantly seeing on Facebook, forums, Reddit, etc., whatever you want to call, whatever you want to name, where somebody posts, I just tried Wayland and it's awesome, followed by the next 30 replies saying Wayland sucks for whatever reason. I'm of the opinion that most of those that are saying Wayland sucks, not on a rolling release. If you take something like Ubuntu LTS, Leap 15.4, something that came out years ago, in some cases, in worst cases, Ubuntu 22.04 LTS came out in 2020 for almost to the date 4 years old. Yeah, it's not going to be good. Again, rolling release 6 months ago, NVIDIA, not good. Today, good. So unless you're on a rolling release, your mileage may vary. And if you're not on a rolling release and you have AMD graphics or Intel graphics, you're probably okay. NVIDIA, probably not. So again, let's fix this image. If you're playing games these days, you're in a Wayland session, KDE or GNOME. You're running games on Wine or Proton. It's built for X. So let's fix this image, because now this image should look like this. So what happens with the X client, and I'm going to talk specifically about Wine. What happens with any X client when you're running a Wayland session is you're interpreting it through X Wayland. So you once again have that extra layer of interpreter between the client and the compositor. So you're not much better off than you are over here on the X side, which brings me to Wine version 9.0, which just released. They have an experimental Wayland protocol, I guess. They have experimental Wayland features in Wine version 9.0. It is not active by default, but you can enable it in Wine 9.0. So if you're running Wine 9.0 and you're using that Wayland session or Wayland environment in Wine, you get rid of this X Wayland, and it becomes a Wayland Wine Proton going straight to the Wayland compositor. You get rid of this little layer of X Wayland in between. It makes it more reliable, it makes it more efficient, and in theory, it makes it faster. And now it looks like this, which is exactly what we want. We want it to look like this. Wine Proton being a Wayland client speaking directly to the Wayland compositor. I have run a test in Wine 9 using Path of Exile, and we're going to take a look at what that looks like right now. So today my curiosity runs me into Wine, specifically Wine 9.0, which has the experimental Wayland driver on it. I want to try it. And OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, I have Wine version 9.0-1.2. We're going to try it. I have already downloaded and installed in Wine Path of Exile because I know it works. It just works. So if I go to my menu and find Wine, I have Path of Exile. This is running through Wine, not through Steam. The one I usually run is running through Steam. I have turned off VSync so I can get a really good indication of what my FPS actually is. So I have turned off my VSync so that I can get a really good indication of what my FPS is. Standing in town, it's 160-ish, fluctuating quite a bit. We're hitting right around 160. Go kill some things. I run around in the rain. So I'll go down to 90. Okay, so sitting still, roughly around 160. Killing things roughly around, it dropped down to 90. Now we're going to set this particular line right here. We're going to run that. We're going to set Wine to 9.0 experimental Wayland to be active. And then we're going to try again, see what it does. So we should be Wayland. Okay, we're running. Now we are back in the game. Doesn't seem to be a whole lot of difference. It's not dropping as low. When I'm killing things, it's not dropping as low. Saw 100. Slightly better. Yeah. I can honestly say slightly better. I have not seen a 90 yet. So what that shows is that it is arguably better straight through Wayland, but it is definitively as good, without a doubt. I think it's a little better. The promise that is underlying all of that, promise is the wrong word. The potential that's lying underneath all that is that over the course of the next year or two, as they make Wayland better, as they make Wine/Proton using Wayland better, what about a 10% increase in Windows games running on Linux? We already have Windows games that are running better than they do on Windows. We already have that as running either in X or as X Wayland, either one. And on my machine, X Wayland does better than X. So I've been running Wayland Wayland session for easily pretty close to a year, and it just runs better for me. But as X couldn't go any further, Wayland has a potential of being even better than it already is. The Wayland client or the Wayland protocol of Wine/Proton has the potential of being better. It's still experimental, so it can only get better. What about a 10% increase in how well Windows games run on Linux under Wine/Proton? The potential there, what I see is that you have serious gamers that are going to start looking at Linux to be their serious gaming platform. And as more serious gamers move to Linux to be serious gamers under the Linux platform, you've got game makers going, we need to make sure our games at least run in under Wine/Proton. That means, and most of them already do. The ones that don't, most of the reason that they don't is because of anti-cheat. So you're going to have serious gaming companies going, we have to make our anti-cheat work under Wine/Proton in Linux. And if they can't make it work, they're going to look for a different anti-cheat solution that does work. And there's going to be even more games coming to Linux that don't work now, that work, but the anti-cheat's keeping it from working. So that's what I see as a potential. Let's talk about desktop environments and window makers or window managers, I think is what they're called. Enlightenment, GNOME, KDE, those already work. I think Sway, only works in Wayland. You have Cinnamon that just released a experimental session for Cinnamon. You have more and more of these, and I'm pretty sure that LXDE, I think they have said they're going to work on it. LXQT, that should be a simple fix, and I'm confident they'll come out with something. It's running Qt just like KDE does, so I don't think that's going to be hard for them. They're going to do it. You have Mate experimenting with Wayland Session. Details of Mate Wayland Session. This is a simple and for now experimental Mate session using Wayfire. Wayfire is a Wayland compositor re-implementing much of the look and feel of Compiz. This has been tested and is known to work under SDDM and it should work under any display manager that supports Wayland. This session is shown in the greeter along with Mate X11 session and all other installed sessions. So Mate is at least experimenting with it. I'm sure they're going to have it. I'm positive. So here's another one, LXQT, Wayland implementations for LXQT desktop. They're working on it. They're going to make it work. So what does all this mean? This all that I'm trying to get at is Wayland is what's going to be. X is going away. X has been dead for 10 years. It's been on life support. And most of that life support has been Red Hat. And Red Hat said, we're not doing it anymore. And if X is going to continue to be on life support, it's going to have to be somebody else. And your big companies, KDE, GNOME, even the smaller ones, Mate, LXQT, LXDE, none of those are going to do it. If they're going to move to Wayland, none of those are going to work on X. So, okay, embrace Wayland because that is what we're going to have. It is better than X. Hands down, plain and simple. It's more efficient. It's more reliable. It's faster. It's cleaner. It's not seriously old and outdated. And I don't know that some of those window maker environments, window manager environments, some of those are just going to go away. and I don't know if they work in an X Wayland session or not, but you're still going to have something that's running that Wayland session in order for the window manager to work on top of the already existing Wayland session. That makes sense? If the window manager doesn't have a Wayland session implementation, then you're not going to start a Wayland session without it. You also have the big boys they're already talking about dropping support for X. Red Hat has already announced they're dropping support for X. Fedora has announced they're dropping support for X, which makes sense considering they are the community version of Red Hat, sort of, kind of, somewhat, sort of. So it's just a matter of time. You have KDE at least saying they don't want to continue to work on an X session. In KDE 6, they talked about dropping the X session for KDE 6. I think they have changed their mind. I'm not sure, but it's just X is going away unless somebody picks it up. And there's not much more that can be done with it. So it's not going to improve. It's just going to be continued to be put on life support while Wayland keeps improving. So yeah, that's it. That's all for this video. In the comments, let me know what you think about what I've said here. Does what I'm saying make sense? Do you agree or disagree? If Wayland is not working for you right now very well, let me know what distro you're running. Is it something that is a point release that maybe when you get your next point release it'll be better? Or are you in a bleeding edge or near bleeding edge system running KDE or GNOME, one of those specifically, and it's still not working for you? I'd like to know. So anyway, that's all for this one. As always, thanks for watching.